This is Jeff Grebe, and this is my market moment for February 21st. I want to begin with a quote first from Investopedia. It says, "Real estate is one of the time-honored inflation hedges. It's a tangible asset, and those tend to hold their value when inflation reigns, unlike paper assets. More specifically, as prices rise, so do property values." So what we can see here is that home ownership is one of those things where you can lock in the cost today. It's an asset that's increasing in value in time, and as prices rise and home values rise and all the other prices around us rise, locking in that fixed cost in home ownership is really game-changing as a hedge against inflation tomorrow. This slide depicts home ownership outperforming inflation over time. This is the home price appreciation versus the consumer price increases over the decades, and it goes all the way back to the 1970s. Now what you're looking at here is the blue bars are the average inflation rate for the decade, and the green bars are the average home price appreciation for each of those decades. Let's look at the 1970s to start. Appreciation outperformed inflation by over 2%, and that's where you want to be during inflationary times. Now in the 1980s, it was a little bit more balanced. 5.6% inflation, 5.5% home price appreciation. And look at the 90s. We start to see home values tick up a little bit more, outperforming inflation throughout that decade. Now we know the 2000s were very different. We had an oversupply of homes, and we had lending standards that were vastly different than they are today. So home prices did not outperform inflation in the 2000s. But look at the 2010s. This is where home values really started to kick in. Homes started appreciating much faster than inflation. And in 2020 and 2021, you know what happened here. Massive home price appreciation. So over time, what you can see is that home ownership is generally looked at as a great hedge against inflation because home values are performing better than the inflation rate. That means that someone buying a home today can lock in today's cost and protect themselves against the rising cost of inflation in their biggest monthly payment going forward. Now, this really becomes important when we start talking about renting, because renting takes on the risk of rising rental prices year after year after year, whereas a fixed rate mortgage allows you to maintain the biggest portion of your housing expenses at the same payment. Sure, property taxes will rise and other expenses may creep up, but your monthly mortgage housing payment remains about the same. That's certainly not the case if you're renting. And so this becomes really powerful for someone who might be saying, I'm going to wait and see what happens to home values. Well, all the forecasts show that home values are projected to continue to rise. Someone who continues to rent but could buy is taking on additional increases in rent year after year. Plus, it's going to cost more to buy a house down the road. So it's really important for renters to understand this dynamic. And I think this next visual really helps you show how rental prices compare to inflation rate. Rental price appreciation versus the core inflation rate, again, going all the way back to the 1970s. So your blue line is the core inflation rate and your green line is the rental price appreciation. And what we see here as a whole is that the green line is higher than the blue line in most scenarios, meaning that rental prices have increased at a faster rate than inflation in most times. I think this quote from Forbes really kind of brings it home for us. It says homeowners are shielded from mounting rental prices because their cost is fixed, regardless of what's happening in the market. They're locking in that payment at today's cost. Tangible assets like real estate get more valuable over time. You've seen that in the graphs that we've shown, which makes buying a home a good way to spend your money during inflationary times. Home values are expected to continue to increase in value over time, as this chart shows. And even on the lower end, 23.7%, is pretty significant over the next 5 years. So locking in today's cost is mission critical for those who have the opportunity to do so, to protect themselves in their largest monthly payment. Because as we know, with home prices rising, mortgage rates rising, inflation all around us, it's going to get more expensive to purchase a home. We would love to meet with you to discuss the home buying process in the current market. Reach out to us at 865-474-7100 or online at AdvantagePlusTN.com. And as always, like, follow, or subscribe to this page for weekly market updates. From me, Jeff Grebe with Weichert Realtors Advantage Plus. Have a great day.